Hello everyone, welcome back to Trek-A-Day, and continuing on with my top 50 favorite Star Trek characters, we are finally in the top 10. With number 10, Laren. Strong, independent, frequently belligerent character who I immediately clung to the background and the overall story arc of this character, as she was used to help introduce the concept of the Bajorans in a way that would plant some seeds for storytelling to move in with the Bajorans and the Maquis and all the concepts that are very important to Deep Space Nine, my favorite Star Trek. And it was something I was always just immediately fascinated with. And Laren was someone who came in and brought something very different to the table for a reoccurring cast member on TNG. Someone who was bucking the trend of the ideal officer and someone who really had issues with authority and had been imprisoned for defying a direct order, which led to the death of several of her former crewmates. Someone with tremendous tenacity and someone who uses her anger as a barrier when she feels any sort of emotional vulnerability. And I was drawn to a lot of elements of that character and her personality, and I loved the way that she was written in how she's formed these bonds and these friendships and slowly let levels of her guard down with certain characters, and seeing those moments and seeing that smile or that laugh or that little bit of another part of herself slowly break through as the character grew on her short time really on TNG. And she's a big part of why season 5 in general is probably my favorite season of The Next Generation. A lot of great episodes with her there, and you have episodes like Disaster, which is just one of my all-time favorites and really shows part of why I love her personality. Her relationships with Riker and Picard in particular I enjoyed, although one thing that I think doesn't get mentioned as frequently is her friendship with both Geordi and Guinan, and how those relationships really help bring out another part of her while she has a very fatherly relationship with Picard, and this butting heads with Riker that harkens back in many ways to when Riker and Shelby were butting heads in Best of Both Worlds. And within the context of TNG, it was fascinating and preemptive strike. So she was just one of my all-time favorites. And then, of course, it was amazing to see her come back in Picard for that little bit, a few emotional moments. And then what works better, though, is I really liked the way her character then came back in the books after the end of DS9 to be the new chief of security on Deep Space Nine, and in particular her friendship and eventually romantic relationship with Quark. A lot of great stuff with her there. She's always been one of my absolute favorites, and is a character who I always come back to. Episodes where she is very prominent are ones that are always in my rotation of TNG episodes, because she's just a character that I've always gravitated towards and found interesting, and someone who I always wanted to see more of.